What's up, everybody? Totally not driving and holding my phone selfie mode right now. But anyways, today I am going to do the first part of my story about how I ended up facing 90 years in prison at 19 years old with an attempted murder and 2 reckless endangerment with a firearm and 1 count of battery. So I think today I am just gonna go from my childhood probably all the way until I first smoked weed when I was like 11 or 12. So anyways, I grew up in northern Wisconsin. I kind of live in an area where you can go between Wisconsin and Minnesota over a bridge. You can get there in like 5 minutes to each state. So kind of grew up in both Wisconsin and Minnesota, and my childhood there was some bad stuff, but it was pretty good for the most part. Oh my god, the seagull just ran in front of my truck. Anyways, I'll start with the good stuff first. So I grew up in these giant white apartments, like public housing, and we had a park right next to the apartment, and we had like a swamp and woods and a grocery store. So lots of things to do as kids, lots of hood rat stuff we did in the summers when it was warm out, which is barely not even close to most of the year because of where we live in Wisconsin. When it was warm out, we would have like wars with rocks and sticks and climb trees, throw rocks at each other, get into little groups of people and, you know, have little gang wars, beat each other up, just hood rat stuff like that, climb buildings, climb stair sets, break into abandoned places, all that sort of stuff. I think my generation was probably the last generation of kids in like the late 90s, early 2000s. I think that we were the last ones to, like, at least where I live anyway, to like we were outside all day, every day. Kids just don't do it like that anymore up here anyway. But when we would get to like 8 or 9, kids started stealing their mom and dad's like cigarettes, and it started out with that, and then people started stealing weed from their parents, and my mom I'll get into this after I tell this story. My mom I've met hundreds if not thousands of addicts from my time dealing with addiction and being in prison, and my mom was the worst addict I've ever met. She was a severe alcoholic. She had prescriptions for everything. I'll get into all that stuff. But anyways, when I was a kid, when I started finally understanding what my mom was doing, what drugs were, I categorized weed in the same genre as everything else, like all you guys probably did when you were younger. You thought weed was horrible, thought the cops were gonna come arrest you if you were around people who had weed, whatever. We all know weed's not bad anymore as adults, but when we were kids, it's totally different. So I was scared at first, and I was one of the last ones to give in to actually smoking. And the first time I did, I didn't even get high. We brought a tiny little 1-hitter into the woods. I was so scared to smoke. And then tried it a couple more times, and then one time I finally got high. And I kind of made it my life's mission to try and do that as much as I could, all day, every day. And that continued probably all the way up till I was like 18 or 19. I spent my whole teenage years. I would eventually get into like pills and other drugs when I was kind of like 14 or 15, but between then it was just weed all day, every day. Any time that I could, any money I would get, it would go to weed. But anyways, let's get into the bad stuff about when I was growing up. So like I was saying, my mom, she finally passed away, I think in like March of 2021. And I don't say finally like we wanted her to die, because we didn't. It's finally as in we were surprised that she made it that long. She had prescriptions for everything. She could manipulate doctors. She had Klonopins, Valium, Ritalin. She would get opiates, and then she would try to get off opiates. I remember she got like 80 2-milligram Suboxones a month, and she would go through it in like 2 or 3 days, just getting loaded. She would get loaded on anything she could. And funny enough, the two things that she was addicted to the most were things that you can buy legally. So alcohol was number one. Honestly, when she was just doing pills or drugs, I was kind of happy as a kid and as a teenager, because she would at least be somewhat coherent, which is horrible to say, but that's just how it is. The worst alcoholic I have ever met. Later on in these series, I'll start telling you guys more stories about this stuff, but the second worst thing that she was addicted to was huffing like keyboard cleaner. Whippets didn't exist back then, or else I'm sure she would have been doing that, but it was just like duster and stuff. And there's one story that I remembered recently from when I was probably like 8 or 9 years old, and I stayed home sick from school one day. I was actually sick. I used to stay home sick from school, and I would just want to stay home. But this time I was actually sick, and I remember, I'm parked now. I remember that the way that our apartment is set up, it's just one long hallway, and then there's the living room, and then the stairs to get downstairs. And I don't know why, like, sometimes when I was a kid, I would just like go and like walk down the hallway, because I would be in my room, and like just look around the corner and see what people were doing in there. And then I saw my mom like falling. I know now that she was nodding out, but I thought that she was like just falling asleep over and over again, and I would hear this like loud, I don't even know how to describe the noise that like a duster makes when someone's inhaling it. But anyways, she was doing duster and she was falling out, and it scared the shit out of me. Well, I don't know if I'm supposed to swear on YouTube. Anyways, it scared the crap out of me, and I went up and tried to take it from her, and she, despite looking like she was completely gone, she had like a death grip on the can. And we started wrestling for it. You know, I was a 9-year-old boy. She's like full grown woman. So she obviously didn't give it up very easily, but I finally got it. And the whole time that we were wrestling, her eyes are just halfway, just droopy. She's loaded. And I went out on our balcony and I threw it over the apartments into the woods. And she locked the balcony door, and I was out there for like 2 hours. I was crying, and then I finally got her to let me back inside, and then I called my dad. My dad, by the way, is a great person. I would have been screwed without him, and I'll get into that later. My dad, he couldn't be around. He had to work constantly because my mom would run up his credit cards. We just didn't have much money growing up. We had everything that we needed, but we didn't have anything that we wanted. But anyways, so he got home and kicked her out, and this would be one of like the 40 times he kicked her out. I wish, nobody's perfect, I wish that he would have just stuck to it and just took us away from her, because that screwed me and my brother up a lot as kids. That's just one of many things that happened. She did not hide her use from us at all. anyways, I think that's probably where I'm gonna leave off today. But if you guys want to make my dream come true of doing YouTube full time, I need to hit 1,000 subs, I believe it is, to where I can start monetizing, and I'll probably do like giveaways and stuff when I get to 1,000 subs. But if you guys can just like this, subscribe, do whatever you can to support me, I'm gonna give back to you guys if I make it up there. So thank you guys and have a good day, and stay tuned for the next part.